It's Spoilerin time. If you came here expecting cord killers, that of course is our other show all about how to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you please. This is the celebratory party time in which we talk about the content that we watched, how we watched it, and what we loved or didn't love about it. My name is Brian Brushwood. I'm joined live in studio by our producer, Bryce Neshcom Castillo.
Hello.
Also joined live via Skype by your friend of mine, Mulango AE. How you doing, Mulango?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Coming up on this episode, we are going to talk about The Disaster Artist. We're also going to talk about Mr. Robot. Which episode? 308?
309.
309.
The penultimate episode of the season.
Oh, it passed so fast.
Yeah.
We will not be talking about Deadwood because Tom Merritt is not here with us, but we will be talking about the Winter Movie Draft. Woo! All right. Coming in at first place, Team Cord Killers, Mulango AE. Now we know why he's hanging out for Spoilerin time.
He's taking a victory lap.
That's it. That's all I wanted to hear. Okay, see you guys.
So yeah, Cord Killers is in the lead with 434 million, followed by Team Champions at 373 million, Big and Tall at 334 million, Team Jury at 324 million, Feline at 153 million, and Frog Pants at 0, waiting for Star Wars, which is next week, guys. Next week's gonna be make or break.
So I think it's a fait accompli that Star Wars The Last Jedi, 85% of Star Wars is going to take it because it seems pretty unlikely that it's going to do.
Such a weak year for everyone else.
Everyone, yes. And also just the buzz has been white hot fire for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And it looks like Jedi is going to do better than The Force Awakens, possibly even. Although I will say Cord Killers is much closer. It will not be the blowout that I thought it was going to be because you did very, very well with Thor Ragnarok and Wonder, but The Greatest Showman has yet to come out, and the marketing machine, that engine is in full force. I am seeing it everywhere.
Yeah. Really?
No, yeah, I'm pretty excited. I give Chrissy Cates huge props on that. That was one of her choices along with Thor, and those were very, I mean, the marketing for Thor's just been crazy. And The Greatest Showman, I mean, that I am actually, because of Hugh Jackman, I'm pretty interested to see what that is going to be. But yeah, second place, here we come.
Yeah, I think it's looking good. There is the possibility that Pitch Perfect 3 blows away expectations, and
very possibly. I mean, yeah, man, it's tough. I'm really surprised that The Disaster Artist. I'd like to think The Disaster Artist could have made more than $8 million if they opened it in any theaters at all.
Yeah, is it not? It's just not playing
here
everywhere?
in Austin. It's only in Alamos.
No kidding.
Right, because everyone's showing Coco and Wonder and
and stuff that makes money.
Stuff that right.
Which is weird because the cast is pretty good,
huge.
And I mean, from what I've heard, it's a pretty good movie.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
We'll
talk about it here in a bit, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange love letter to one of the worst movies ever made.
Mm-hmm. So next week is Star Wars. Now, what do you guys think Star Wars' first week will even be? Or first weekend?
Let's. Here's the big question: do you think it'll be less or more than The Force Awakens? Because Force Awakens had a lot of buzz, and I would say the buzz was bigger than for Last Jedi.
I don't see how it could be bigger. It would have to be such a monumentally good movie to make people, even casual viewers of Force Awakens, to also go back and also see it multiple times.
Well, because you're the interesting demographic. You had not really ever watched or fallen in love with the original trilogy.
Which is why I went and saw Force Awakens, because I was like, what was posited was, okay, you'll be into it because it'll be a new thing.
Yeah.
And it was fine, but I didn't really get stoked for Rogue One, which should have very explicitly have been that idea,
right?
And so I'm not right there for Last Jedi. It's a sequel. It's a sequel, and I don't.
And you weren't crazy about the first one.
The first one, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I'm a very weird person who's not interested in Star Wars.
What about you, Mulango? What do you think?
I mean, I already have three pre-bought tickets for 3 different showings, and I'm like, I'm in a movie draft where I should be betting against this. I'm already going to I'm going to see it on Thursday opening night or the Wednesday opening night.
Wow.
And then, or whatever night it comes out. And then when I go home to see family, I know I have to see it again at least 2 more times there.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be huge.
Some of the estimates from the chat for the opening weekend are 220 to 250 million, which would be more than almost everything else in the draft has earned, except Thor, which just crossed 301.
Right.
It would be more than any full run of any movie on the draft yet.
Oh, that's the other thing too. Is this is fairly late in the draft, and so that means when's the cutoff here?
So the season will end on January 22nd. So it'll get more than it's.
Okay, so yeah, it'll get the bulk of it. But let's say it does 600 million, which is within the realm.
Seems conservative, honestly.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
But let's say it does a conservative 600 million. 85% of that would be what 525ish.
510.
510, and in that case, Team Cord Killers could overtake if the Greatest Showman were to do 80 or 90 million.
Yeah, or if Pitch Perfect 3 for Team Champions is a huge smash.
Yeah, that seems a little less. I'm rooting for Team Cord Killers.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there's a musical element, I don't know. That's the only thing that kind of had me. I mean, the thing is, it's Christmas, and everybody's going to have off. Just going to be with family.
Well, and basically, its strength is going to be that it's not. You can watch Star Wars or the one movie that's not Star Wars, and that's going to be Greatest Showman.
I think my holiday movie I'm going to try to get people to go see is Coco.
Oh, so good.
Because I think Coco is going to be the great.
You think it's going to get a
film.
big resurgence?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Also, Wonder doing really well. Wonder jumping up to the #1 buy in the draft.
Wow.
At $7 with a $100 million return. That's
wow.
That's a big get for you guys, Mulango.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it always ends up being though in a weak year is the small, underestimated movies.
All right. Well,
Definitely.
Mulango, we're gonna talk about the Disaster Artist. So if you want to drop off, we won't spoil you, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You got
See
it,
you
man.
later.
Good chatting with you. At Mulango AE on Twitter. Get all of his thoughts in your brain.
That's right. Bye.
Adios.
All right. Can we talk about the Disaster Artist?
Sure.
You sound less enthusiastic about it than I was.
That's not exactly where I'm coming at it from, but I did walk away from the Disaster Artist conflicted.
Had you seen The Room?
Oh yeah, multiple times.
I have not seen The Room.
You've never seen
I've
The
only
Room.
seen the best scenes from The Room. You know, that 10-minute YouTube clip extravaganza.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
Which I think was enough to take me into it.
I think it's enough to really give you a sense of how objectively bad The Room is.
Yes.
I mean, there's no getting around it. You can go and have fun at a slaughterhouse, but it's still a slaughterhouse. And so what was really let's start with you because you had a really positive experience with this.
Yes. I don't know how much of any of these vectors is responsible for me having a great time.
Okay.
Part of it was that Bonnie was convinced she was going to hate it, and I went out on a limb to take her out to it, and she ended up loving it. We had a really good time. Number 2, the casting was so much fun.
Fantastic.
Not only is James Franco as amazing as Tommy Wiseau, but the fact that he's playing off his second lead is his own actual brother.
Yeah.
And to convey this strange, I don't want to say, like through the lens of what's his name, Greg's mom. You know, she sees this as what's this weird homoerotic running off to Hollywood story happening with my child or whatever. Yeah. But yet. It's also very, very platonic. It's about a hunger for friendship, and there's clearly something empty in Tommy Wiseau's life that makes him want to give so much, but he's also so self-conscious and the actual human being, Tommy Wiseau, struck me as a one-dimensional character that I don't really believe.
Okay.
The character Tommy Wiseau, as portrayed in The Disaster Artist,
great character.
is a fascinating, multifaceted, a tragic person.
He's a mysterious character who is never resolved.
Yes.
If this was a fictional story, you
wildly unbelievable.
Yeah.
You would be annoyed.
You would have huge red marks at the end of the script saying, you didn't finish telling us anything about this guy.
Which is another thing I loved about The Disaster Artist, because they even, one of the things they set up is one of the characters is saying, like, I have breast cancer. And then she points out, you're like, does this even go anywhere? It doesn't even go anywhere.
Right.
And then they fixed it in The Disaster Artist because they had that moment. And then when the movie plays, it gets to that scene and she's like, it doesn't come back. It doesn't come back. I adored the fact that it swam laps around it. But again, back to the casting. That was Josh, Future
Josh
Man,
Hutcherson.
the Futterman,
Hunger Games guy.
yeah, PETA.
Yeah.
He'll always be Future Man to me. But also one of the other characters, we talked about him earlier.
Paul Scheer.
Yep. Paul Scheer. Seth Rogen is great in it. And here's the other part I can't divorce from it is I've been on set when there was a meltdown.
Sure.
And it's super awkward. And they captured that moment. And I've been on set when there was insufficient air conditioning. And it was miserable. Like we'd do a take and I'd run over and stuff my shirt over the AC
fan,
unit to get cool air on me and all this stuff. So I think I really adored watching and even the little things where it's like, well, people don't really buy the equipment, they rent the equipment, and which is something else I learned on set. There was enough of these on set, like that's exactly how it is, that it elevated the entire story for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I loved it and had a great time.
So like the story of the making of The Room is clearly infamous, right? This is based off of Greg's own memoir, also called The Disaster
Artist, yeah.
And like all of that realism comes from it really happening, right? You'd like to believe it all really happened in that really kooky way. And I think the story is incredible, right? Like this movie is very funny. Tommy Wiseau is a weird character, is a weird cat who you want to look at because you don't know how he works, and you're seeing someone who you can't possibly relate to,
yes,
who you couldn't possibly empathize with. And what The Disaster Artist does frame really well is making us feel a lot of empathy for Tommy, right? For someone who notoriously seems to have more money than wisdom, but there's still loneliness, there's still a need for fulfillment, satisfaction, companionship, and the way he is someone who is also protective and jealous and possessive and has said, I'm gonna laugh at this line, and I'm going to be laughing at this line.
Right.
And I'm not gonna give you a take where I'm shocked at your domestic abuse squabble.
Right.
So it's all great. Like the movie that I watched was great. So what I felt super conflicted about walking out is that why I like watching The Room is because it's like watching any bad movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad movie experience. And the ending of The Disaster Artist, where they're at the premiere and the audience is just, uproariously laughing nonstop at this awful movie, but they've all mind melded and are all able to laugh at it at every little bit. And I think it just you would look at the story, and if this was fictional, you would look at the moral, and it would be to find the good things in the bad, right? Do your best and make what you can with what you've got. And I think that's super unfortunate because the way Tommy gets there is by having again, more money than wisdom, right? He was able to finish doing his thing only because he had the means to. Whereas if this was any other movie that was pitched or was working on where he didn't have 110% of all the financing himself, you know, someone saying, no, this is stupid. You need to go and do this the right way, and you will make a better movie by having a collaborative process. I walked away from thinking this, like, the unfortunate thinking of money can buy you satisfaction. And that was a little bit of a weird pill to see.
Oh, that's it. This is really interesting because, well, first of all, the ending does tidy things up considerably, but it also stays true to the actual story. In the movie, you get to the premiere, and basically there's a 10-minute arc of, oh, is this bad? Yeah, it's bad. Oh, we've all figured out it's bad. It's hilarious how bad it is. Oh, I'm sad everyone thinks my movie's bad. Oh, I've come around and decided to take credit for it being a comedy. They act like that all happens in the 90-minute span. But that is what happened. You know, what he did not sponsor The Room being at midnight showings. It happened organically on its own. And people started inviting him out to kind of laugh openly at his magnum opus. And it was a matter of years when he started to say, yes, my comedic vision that I definitely did on purpose because it was meant as dark comedy.
Right.
So in that regard, I didn't mind it being tidied up, but also, and I don't know if this is the crazy libertarian in me. It's like, I love when crazy, dumb, rich people spend lots of money on outrageous failures, because essentially what they do is they subsidize the education of everyone around them and allow them to create better art for their failures. So I would say we would live in a poorer world had he not had this gotten halfway through completion and then just ended up on a shelf and never got shown or whatever. Like, I celebrate the fact that this guy with more money than wisdom paid to see it through, and then and we have a richer tapestry for it. So in that regard, I adored the message.
Well, I think in the real world, I think that's great, right? Because eventually we are able to enjoy The Room, and no one is hurt by The Room being existed and coming into fruition.
Yes.
But I think when that is a little bit of subtext that the movie trucks in, just a little bit, I think, oh, is this a great takeaway? I just worry, like, I think that you should always try what you love and do what you love, but you also have to recognize when other people know it's tough. This is super tough. As a creator, I don't love the idea of people with more money than talent rising to success in such a very
that's so interesting. So you and I have the same problem from different angles. I can't tell how much of this I loved because I'm so familiar with the phases of creation and enjoyed vicariously going through that again.
Right.
And you can't tell how much you hated it because it gives a message that's antithetical to how you believe art should be created.
Yeah, and so or just it's tough because it's. I think if you looked at any other number of bad movies that have just disappeared into the ether, that's all that happened is they were bad movies and nobody watched them, and some people find them funny, but they're not lauded and they're not celebrated and they're not an achievement. And so it's kind of a weird outlier, and it makes it tough to I'm still just conflicted. This is all the confliction.
That's great. And by the way, that's how I knew, like when I saw Donnie Darko in the movie theater, we left, didn't say a word. We drove home, didn't say a word. Got home, didn't say a word. And like 40 minutes later, I was like, I think I love that movie. And Bonnie's like, why? I'm like, because I can't figure out how I feel about that movie. And it's like, to me, the mere fact that it stayed with me that long afterwards was a hallmark of it. And in that regard, the fact that you're wrestling with it makes me happy.
I think in every other aspect, in the execution, in all of the recreated scenes, that bit right before the credits start where they go through all the scenes that they've recreated and how they really nail a lot of that stuff. I remember they show in the movie them doing the flower shop scene where he goes in and he asks for the
You're my favorite customer.
And I remember watching it because that was one of the scenes that I watched one of those best ofs to sort of refresh myself. And I thought, is that the exact place? And you see it, and it's clearly not. It's a very good look-alike.
Right.
But inside and outside of the story, they do a very good job. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
This is also one of the benefits of seeing at the Alamo Drafthouse is they did featurettes where they did interviews with James Franco, with Tommy Wiseau, with Greg, what's his name, the guy,
Sestrick.
And seeing those people speaking in that context and still feeling 15 years after the fact, the radiating awkwardness just associated with it.
One of the pre-show questions was to Greg.
Yes, and
what
said,
what was the most awkward point, the most awkward set moment
you've ever had in all of movies?
And in the parentheses is Tommy was standing right behind Greg as we asked this.
and he mentions he very unrealistically delivers like, oh well, it was some movie, definitely not the room where it was super awkward.
There is something just that's a very good feature. If you can see it in Alamo, check out their Alamo birth movies death thing. It was very cool. Just those ugly sunglasses Tommy was wearing.
Oh,
and they were so
fingerprints,
so
Bonnie
dirty.
couldn't. But Bonnie's watching, and then and both of us at the same time take off our glasses and start cleaning them.
Well, it doesn't help that he's got like. It makes you wonder if they asked Tommy to set up the shot because there's like this ugly fluorescent light being reflected in these dirty ass glasses.
This is awful.
Anyway,
great. I love everything about it. It's Schadenfreude the movie. It's great.
Man, I wish they had figured out the release on this because I know last week it was like in limited release. And now it's like wide release, but
it still feels pretty limited.
It still feels pretty. I had to drive to an Alamo instead of walking to my movie.
Oh yeah.
So
interesting.
So anyway.
All right. So Mr. Robot, this is going to be a weird one. You're going to have to mainly spoil me on it.
So talk to me about where you got to.
I got about a third of the way in before real life caught me, and I wasn't able to finish it. The cold open, I dug. I love the fact that it never bothers to inform you of when stuff's happening, that you pick it up from context clues. You're like, oh, Gideon's still alive. This must be back then. Oh, this is Colby's not in prison yet.
Oh, right. I forgot about the cold open where they're giving Tyrell, or when they're about to hire Allsafe.
That's right. And they retcon, and that's the other thing I like about the time travel stuff, is a bearded bald guy in charge of E-Corp. You could tell that they acquire... No, not Wellick. Wellick's boss. The
CEO.
Yeah, the guy who looks like Ben Bernanke. I think that's what I called him.
Yes.
Ben Bernanke. Basically, it's intimated that he just sees Angela, and based on Angela in her subservient coffee-filling role, decides to acquire Allsafe and
or not even that. Just use their services.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hire them and.
Bryce.
Clearly, with the intention of eventually recruiting Angela like he does, and so we see her pre-crazy. We also see ominous messages.
The
Elliot
FBI
blanks out, and it's like FBI owns. It's almost as though we're seeing Mr. Robot trying to work with Elliot in some regard.
Yeah.
Because we're presented with stuff out of context, and obviously Mr. Robot knows the full story of FBI, but apparently he and Elliot are not on speaking terms.
So that's the tough thing about you not getting to the end of the episode is that it ends right where that scene starts.
Okay.
So it starts with Elliot seeing the soap and saying, "Oh, I left these files open. What was Mr. Robot doing?"
And then it snaps back, and then all of this is getting us caught up to that moment.
At least the Mr. Robot scenes are, because interspersed with that, we still have Elliot sequences, and we have a sequence with White Rose and with Angela.
Okay, just tell me this much: do we get more on our crazy crackpot theory?
Yo. So I never bought the Angela is crazy shtick because Angela has so far done a very good job of keeping it together, right?
Yeah.
Was it her or Dom? It must have been her in the first season where we saw her, like, she had all those DVDs and the motivational stuff. Wasn't that Angela? Or was
Yes,
that Dom?
yes, that was
Yeah.
Angela, and I think it was at the beginning of season 2
Okay.
because she's starting to work for E Corp and she's pumping herself up with all the motivational stuff.
So Angela, and remember we saw Angela last week in the whole Elliot and outside of her door thing. We never saw the inside of her apartment. Her apartment is
Crazy person
conspiracy theory. It's great. It's great. And so she's so disheveled, and she's got her like crazy woman outfit on because you can't be crazy and like not
And
wear
fashionable.
a nice blazer, right?
Right.
To the point where she believes so. She and Elliot talk again, and they're sort of making progress with each other until they go to Elliot's house, and the assassin from the Dark Army, Joey Badass. I don't remember his character's name.
Got it.
The dark-skinned guy who killed the kids out in Arizona a couple weeks ago.
Oh, got it. The one who loves Seinfeld.
Yes. Got
it.
He's there in the apartment when they get there, and so this makes Angela snap. She's like, "You're all listening, and you're all I don't know, and you don't believe me in this thing with White Rose." And so she goes home, packs up her fish on a grocery cart, and hits the street.
No faster way to say crazy person than a grocery cart on the street.
But then she gets picked up. She gets picked up by an unknown van in front of a guy who looks a lot like Cisco selling or trying to give away his CDs on the corner. But she gets caught, and that seems to be hopefully something that will get resolved next week.
Do we get any more of that backflash from the beginning, or
No.
everything else is current time?
Yeah, everything else goes to current time. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of Mr. Robot at Wellick's house with the CEO, and it was like, you are the CTO, which is an empty position, and you don't ever have any power, which I think that's what propels Mr. Robot to be like, okay, if I want what I want, I need to really make some moves.
So do you feel like this episode gave you enough momentum? Because I remember last week's episode I liked because it was just standalone and it felt stable.
And I was super upset because it was pumping the brakes super hard.
Yeah.
This one, I think, is getting us back up into momentum because we've got Elliot, who is sort of recognizing that Mr. Robot is now sharing information between the FBI is owned. You've got Darlene, who is working.
So, Darlene and this is previous has come out to Elliot as I'm working with the feds.
Right.
How are we going to deal with this?
And so Darlene and Elliot are getting back together and saying, hey, like, we can fix all of this. And Darlene is saying, hey, I can work the FBI. I think I got an in. And her in is romancing Dom, apparently.
Oh, wild. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they go out to a bar, and she tries to, like, RFID spoof her badge, and then she misses. And so that snowballs into another drink, and they go back to the house, and they have sex. And while Dom is still asleep, Darlene tries to get into her safe to get the badge, and Darlene gets caught. And so there is this. She gets into FBI.
So you're saying Darlene is in bed with the FBI?
In bed with the FBI. And it creates, the FBI director is in bed with the Dark Army, so it creates this weird thing of like, well, Darlene says she can fix the hack. And Dom sees no other reason why they shouldn't try.
Dom doesn't know that FBI is compromised. Right. Okay.
And so you see the FBI director kind of not knowing what to do, and is on the phone with Zhang, White Rose's assistant, which is what gives Elliot sort of the credibility to meet with Zhang to say, hey, phase 3 is a thing.
Yeah.
Where they say, no, it's not. You only said there were 2 phases. We're stealing your laptop, by the way. Which the end of that sort of timeline is they take the laptop, they look at his files, they upload something, and suddenly the Dark Army is owned. He made a file, whatever. It's
sure.
There's a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Now Elliot thinks he has access to the Dark Army.
And that's where we're left at the end of this episode.
That's it. There's also a really good sequence with White Rose and Zhang, and it's really
White Rose as White Rose,
yes,
or
White Rose as White Rose with her advisor Zhang. and it starts off really weird because it immediately starts off with White Rose having this big outburst, like, hey, I've got the Congo. Why is the plan's not moving along for whatever plan it is? It's not said, but because of all the explosions, the eastern seaboard.
Oh, that's right. We also get a very unhinged Wellick, dealing with the loss of
his power.
Well, the loss of custody of his child, and then also
and believing his child is dead.
No. He knows his child is being raised, unless the child is supposed to be killed. The child's in productive custody in Denmark.
Is it?
I thought that's what they said. Like she got killed. He was out on the run.
Right.
The kid
the FBI gave up the kid to protective services.
But not even in the United States, like in Finland or Denmark or wherever.
Oh, interesting.
So his kid's like not around.
And so there really isn't too much more with him, but I'm sure that'll be something that comes up.
All right. Well, I'm definitely excited to jump in on the rest of it.
Okay. Here's the thing about the White Rose.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know if I should. You see White Rose kind of have this outburst, this very like aggressive, almost show of dominance sort of thing, and then like Zhang is. You get the sense that White Rose is pretty ruthless and doesn't take great to bad news or to not getting her way, and so the scene started like. It's like, oh, okay, well, he's, he flat out just says, hey, this wouldn't have happened if you just listened to me. And if you didn't blow up the things, then we would all be fine because you didn't have to because you already had the votes. And that's the sort of thing where you would think, hey, no.
You don't talk to Darth Vader like that. Yeah.
Unless you're Darth Vader's boyfriend.
Oh, interesting.
And they start making out.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
Okay.
They start macking. Yeah, but it's a really like interesting bent that is really you see Dark Rose interact with Zhang and other underlings.
Dark Rose
or White Rose.
Oh no, I was like, oh my gosh, this is getting even better here.
But it was an interesting intimate scene because when you hit that point, you're like, oh yeah, Dark Rose really doesn't have outbursts. Is very well controlled. White Rose.
White Rose.
I don't know what Dark Rose is.
Hey, Dark Rose is the Shadow Universe.
Oh my God.
From the Upside Down.
That's the second. That's the that's the parallel universe. Which this is a weird thing. One last thing.
Okay.
The presentation of all of these sequences with Mr. Robot and Elliot sort of next to each other that feel in time give you the weird sensation of, hey, these two people are supposed to be the same person.
Right.
I don't think that is a hint at anything, but I think this continues this feeling, the feeling of parallel personalities and parallel universes. It just if you get confused enough about it at first, you could blink and think, oh, is this a universe where the CEO is in Wellick's house with Mr. Robot, but then Elliot is over here doing his thing? It's probably not likely that that's true, but again, very weird choice to tell the story out of order, like halfway like that.
I would say if the show wasn't so beautiful and the plot so compelling and the characters weren't so brilliant, there's a lot I could easily find absolutely agonizing about this whole program,
Yeah.
But instead, I'm hopeful that it's just merely not agonizing, but just tantric, and that there's going to be a moment that all of this collapses in a wonderful, mind-blowing way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll happen by next week. But this has been a better season than the second season, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mr. Robot, especially this season and last season, has been serialized in a way that I think a lot of binge shows are good for. Like remember watching House of Cards and being like, oh yeah, I don't need a previously on because I just watched it.
Right. Or specifically, like we've talked on this show about how we think that Westworld got dinged because we watched it week after week, and everybody who binges it says it's the best show ever. And I wonder how this show would be if we were binging it instead.
I suspect it would be a lot better. I think you would be I think the momentum stuff that I have issues with, I think that would all be flattened over if I wasn't waiting a week to see it.
Yeah. I agree.
So that's Mr. Robot. We'll have the finale next week on a special long Spoilerin time.
Yeah, dude. Special edition. We're going to talk a lot about The Last Jedi and a little bit about the finale of Mr. Robot, and we'll probably declare a winner of the Winter Movie Draft. Until then, we'll spoil you guys later.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.